Okay, hi, my name is Chukwudi Obite. So I'll be training you on Arrow programming. So we need two softwares for us to start. We need Arrow software and we need Arrow Studio. Arrow software and Arrow Studio. So for Arrow Studio to work, you need to have your Arrow software installed. Now, what's the difference? Arrow software is the main software. Arrow Studio is to guide you and help you to write your code. So let me show you, let me share my screen. So this is my Arrow Studio. So if I'm typing, like example, I'm typing read Excel, you see many things will pop up. So that's the essence of Arrow Studio. But Arrow programming, Arrow software doesn't do this. It doesn't guide you on how to write your code. Now, how do you install the software? So you go to your browser, search Arrow software, download, Arrow software download. So this is it. So you click it and download it. This is it. But this is for Windows. If you're not using Windows, so you have to search for yours. Then if you want to, after downloading the Arrow software and installing it, you search Arrow Studio. You can search Arrow Studio download or Arrow Studio exe. So this is it. So this is it. So you download the Arrow Studio. So first you download Arrow software, install it, you download Arrow Studio and install it. After, when you open your Arrow Studio for the first time, you will see 3 environments. In my own, you are seeing 4 because I've been using my Arrow Studio. So you will see this environment, you will see this environment, and you will see this environment. You will see 3 environments. So to make yours look like mine, hold Control and Shift and press N. Control Shift N. Or you go to File, New File, Arrow Script. So this is the Control Shift N. File, New File, Arrow Script. So that's how to make yours to look like mine. Okay, so let me give you an overview of Arrow Studio before we start. An overview of Arrow Studio. So we have 4 environments, as we can see. So this is the first environment. So yeah, we write our code. If you want to write your code and save them, you have to write it here. But if you want to just get result without saving it, you can write it in the second. So I'll be calling this my second environment. So you write it, example, if I just want to know what's 2 plus 5, I don't want to save it, I can do 2 plus 5. But if I want to save it, I have to write it here, 2 plus 5. So I will have record of it. Then I'll click run. So that's the difference. So yeah, you write your code and you are able to save it. Like, let me show you what I've done. I see this, I'm currently working on something. So these are codes I wrote. I can come back to them anytime. If you write code here, it doesn't save. Now, look at the third environment. Can we take a look at the third environment? You see, anything you type, it shows here. Like if I save a variable name, it will show here. So if I do X, this is how to assign variable. I'll explain that. So X is 3. You see it will show in the third environment that I've assigned a variable name X. So whenever I run X, type X and click run, I will explain what I'm doing. I'm just trying to explain the third environment. It tells me X is 3. Why? Because yeah, it has stored. So this gives you the history of all the things you've done. So this is history. It has environment. This environment is, let me clear it. These are all the things I've done before. So it has environment, it has history. So majorly you'll be working with these two. Then the fourth environment you'll be working with plot, mainly plot, packages, and help. If you check your packages, you will not see as many packages I have here. Please, I'm doing the video, please. Okay. So For the fourth environment, we have packages, we have plots, and we have help. This help, you'll be making use of it a lot, so you don't have to memorize too many codes. So if you forget if you forget how to use the function sample, and you want to learn how to use it, you start with a question mark. So question mark means you are telling Arrow you need help, and you type the function sample. You click enter. It will bring this page. There you will see examples of how to use it. So when you read, okay, so let me show you another example. So if I want to know how to use the function mean, so I start with a question mark and I click enter. So it will explain what mean means and give me an example. So this is how to use the function mean. So this is for help. I will have plot. Whenever I make a plot, it will show on this environment. So let me show you an example. So I can do plot 1 to 10. So this is it. So it's showing on this environment. So this environment, this plot is for you to see your plot. Then if you want to save your plot, you click export, copy to clipboard, and you click copy. Then the next one is packages. So packages are collection of Arrow functions. Then packages are stored in libraries. So we have, example, we have this is a library, and this library has different packages. So example, if I want to, like this is a library, AxPass is a library, Bit is a library, and each of these libraries, they have packages. So for example, if I click this, I'm telling Arrow that I want to make use of this library. Another way to call up a library is to type the function library, then you write the name of the library. So let me write the name of Bit. So let me use this, I'll put library, BIT. So if you see it to tick it. So it means I'm telling Arrow I want to make use of this library. Now what's this? Like Arrow has inbuilt functions. Example of the inbuilt functions are mean. So mean is an inbuilt, all these are inbuilt functions. They are inbuilt functions. So these are functions that came with Arrow. Now if you want, example, mode is not in Arrow. This is not the right, this function is not the mode we know. We know mode as the highest value, but this one doesn't give you the highest value. So Arrow doesn't have an inbuilt function for mode. So if you want to do anything that has to do with mode, you have to look for a library. So libraries are code someone else has written. So I can write a code and store them as libraries. So I can create my own library. If like mode that we know mode as the highest value, and I said Arrow doesn't have an inbuilt function for mode. So I can decide to write a code for it and save it. So this is a code I wrote for it because there's a code I'm trying to do and I need mode. So I did something like that. Okay, this one is for me. Okay. So let's just leave that. So if you want to write your code, you can write your code. So these are codes written by people. They store different packages in a library. So I can call them up anytime I want. Instead of me writing, like all these codes I'm writing, after writing all these codes, I can decide to save them. So in this code, I have many functions. So I can decide to save all the functions in a library and call the name of the library Paul. So so when you want to save, you use any name you want. So the person that created this saved it as Crayon. I can decide to create different functions and save it as Paul. So when you have functions like it means it saves you. You don't need to start writing codes like this. You don't have to do that because someone else has written it and the person has stored it. Like example, I made use of mean. I made use of plot you see, I didn't have to write a lot of code before I was able to get this plot, because this plot is an inbuilt function that Aru provided for us. So that's how it is. People write code and you can make use of them. So I'm trying to give an overview of Aru before we start. So we have the first environment. I'm calling this the second environment. I'm calling this the third environment. That gives you the history of all the things you've done. So, and this is the fourth environment where you see plot, packages, and help. So these are the things we will be looking at. If you want to save, you use this. When you join us, please mute your mic. When you join us, please mute your mic. If you want to save, you use this. This is how to save. If I want to open a new sheet, I will use Ctrl-Shift-N. Ctrl-Shift-N. It will give me a new sheet. I think before I was typing in Untitled 1, now I can type in Untitled 2. But let me close it. If I want to close it, I use that icon. So you can copy, paste the rest. Okay, so I think we can start the class proper. So I just give an overview of R. And the first thing I will start with is we have to explain different data structures we have in R. Different data structures we have in R. So we have a lot of different data structures in R. So the first I will explain is vector. So the first data structure we have is vector. We have matrix, we have data frame, we have list. Now, you have to understand this very well because it will guide you when you want to write code. Okay, before I go into that, R is different from SPSS. SPSS is a point and click software, but in R, you have to write your code. It's not just point and click, you write your code. So you tell R what you want. Why SPSS, you are limited to tell SPSS what you want because that's already been programmed. So it's a point and click. Few times that you write code. So that's why in R, you have to, since you are writing code, the first thing you have to learn is data structures, the different data structures. So I said the first one is vector. So once you should know about vector, vector can only, so let me show you an example of vector. So if I want to write vector, so this is a vector. This is a vector. So vector can only take attributes of the same type. It's about vector. So it can take objects that are of the same class. You cannot do something like this. 2, 4, then write a letter A, B. For vector, vector doesn't take things like this. If you watch, look at how the result came out. 2 is in quotes now, 3 is also in quotes. What it means, R is no longer seeing 2 as a number. R is no longer seeing 3 as a number. R is seeing 2 as a category. R is seeing 3 as a category. Like, he's seeing it like the way it is seeing B. So one thing about vector, they are all of the same class. Let me show you the first one I wrote. When they are not in quote, it means R is seeing it as numbers. When they are not in quote, R is seeing it as numbers. So whenever you want to use vector, then you must use, all of them must either be numbers or all of them must either be letters. So example, I can do R, C, H, correct? So this is a vector. So let me do another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So numbers, Arrow doesn't put numbers in quotes, but Arrow puts categories in quotes. So this is a vector. Before we continue, we have to learn how to assign. So this what I just wrote now. I can decide to store this in a name so that I don't need to write this every time. I just have to call up the name. So I can decide to save this in a name and call it num. So this is the function we use to assign a variable name. That means to store what I've written in a name. So I want to store 1 to 5 in a name. So whenever I want to call up that number, I just have to type NUM and run. This is how to run. You click run, or you hold Control and click your enter. So the difference between what I did here in line 12 and in line 11. In line 11, I didn't store it in any name, so I can't call it up again. But in line 12, I stored it in a name, num, and I can call it up anytime. So how do we store in a name? We use two functions. You can either use the equal sign to store, or you use less than and dash to store. This C, we use C whenever you want to write more than one object. So example, if let me write another name, and let me use boy. So if I just want a single number, let me use X. If I want a single number, I don't need to use C. But if I want to store more than one number, then I have to use C. So that's how it is. Now, if you don't put C, let me show you. If you don't put C, you just write 45, give you an error message. So whenever you want to store more than one number, you use C. So all these I've been writing are called vectors. Now, if you want to check the data type of a particular variable name, you use the function class. So let me check what I've written so far. So what is the class of num? And remember what num means, 1 to 5. So it gives you numeric. So numeric is another name for, it tells me that the vector has only numerical object. I can do class of Y. So numeric. So when you see things like this, you know that that particular class, that particular object is a vector. Let me explain again. So vector takes object of the same class. If they are all categories, if one is category, all must be category. If the first one is a number, all must be number. You cannot mix a category and a number when you are dealing with vectors. So what if I want to work with both categories and number? Then you have to use other data type. The second data type we are going to discuss is matrix. So we have matrix. So what's the difference between matrix and vector? If you watch where vector can only take one line, just one line, not more than one line. So what if I want more than one line, and I have to move to matrix? Matrix is similar to vector. It takes object of the same class. You can't mix a category and a number in matrix. You can't do that. So they must all be of the same class. So let me show you how we write matrix. So if you want to write matrix, you start with the function matrix. Remember, I told you anytime you forget anything, just come to your help. You start with the question mark and type matrix. So this is it. So it will bring you how to write it. It will also give you an example of how to write it. It will tell you this is how to write it. So the first thing, after writing your function matrix, you write your data. So let me write the data I want. I want 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, let me do one more. 8, 9. Then the next thing, after data, the next thing is to state the number of rows. I want 2 rows, the number of columns. That's the next thing. Are you seeing it? Encol. Encol means, if you want to know what encol means, come to this and read it. Encol means the desired number of columns. So the desired number of columns is 3. Then the next thing is by row false. I can decide to use it false or I change it to true. The default is false. I can change it to false. I can leave it as false or change it to true. I will explain what this means when we see the results. Now, what's the meaning of this by row? By row means how will arrow enter the numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9? How will arrow enter it? So if you are saying by row through, it means arrow should go by row. So start with the first row, enter all the numbers on the first row. When you are done with the first row, you go to the second row. That's the meaning of by row through. By row first means start with column. So pick the first column, enter the data from the first column. See, when you are done with the first column, you move to the second column. So let's see this. So 1, 3, 5 will be in the first column, right? In the first row, because I'm doing by row through. 7, 8, 9 will then be in the second column. Now look at this. Let me show you another way I can write this. I can do this as data. I'm following the app. So data equal to, I'll do 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. Then I'll write my comma. Then n row, I will do n row equal to 2. Then the next thing is n call equal to 3. Then the next thing is by row equal to. Now both of them will give me the same answer. So what's the difference between this and this? Now this is the default setting for the function matrix. The default setting of the function matrix. Now, if I don't want to write this data n row, n call, by row, then I have to follow the order it appears. So what I mean by following the order, when the first thing that you enter before the comma, arrow will see it as the first default object you're supposed to enter in the function. The next thing, which is 2, that you enter, arrow will see it as the second default object in the function. To avoid making mistake, most times it's better to spell it out so that you don't make any mistake. You know what you are doing. If you are spelling it out, even if you miss the order, it won't give you a wrong answer. So what I mean is, even if I start with n call and do by row to t before writing n row, I will still get the same answer. Are you seeing it? So if you are writing the object, you write it. Even if you miss the order, you are going to get the same answer. But if you are not writing the name of the object, like I did in line 19, you must not miss the order it appears. So what I did in line 20, I didn't assign it to any variable name. So remember I said, if you don't assign it to a variable name, you can't call it up. Whenever you assign it to a variable name, you call it up. You can call it up. Because now, since I didn't assign it to a variable name, anytime I want to get a result like this, I have to write all this long code. Now, to make my work easy, I can copy it and save it in a variable name I will call math. So anytime I type math, it comes out. Remember, this is what I used to assign the variable name. I said you can use this or you use the equal sign. You can use this or use the equal sign. Now, why I like using this, if you're using equal sign, it looks basic to me. Basic. Anyone can use the equal sign, but when you use less than and the dash, it makes you look like a programmer. So sometimes you just have to package yourself and look like a programmer. Can you all hear me?
Yes, right on.
Okay, just give me a minute. Someone is knocking on my door. A minute. You guys should just give me a minute, please. Okay. So maths, if I run maths, I'll see, because I've saved it in a variable name called maths. Now let me check remember what we are learning now is data structure. I want to check I'll use class math. No? Math, then I'll run. So it's telling me that the data structure of math is a matrix. It is also an array. Remember what I told you? You can't, if you are using a matrix, all must be numbers or they must be categories. So let's try something else. So can I write a function? So let me call it fun. Can I write a function where I can combine numbers and categories? So I have 2, I have 4, I have 5, then I have letter T. Number of row is 2, number of column is 2. One thing you should know about arrow, if I choose not to write anything for by row, arrow will use the default. So I don't want to write anything for by row, arrow will use the default, which is false. So what I did in line 25 is to assign all this in a variable name called fun. So if I want to see my results, what I have to do is I will write out the name fun and run. So remember I told you whenever you see any number in quotes, it means arrow is not seeing it as a number. Arrow is seeing it as a category. That's how it is. Why is arrow seeing it as a category? Because we have one category here. So whenever you are using matrix, all must be numbers or all must be categories. I've explained vector. When you are writing, as a good programmer, as you're writing your code, you have to be writing your comments. So I've been missing that, so I can start with this. I can write a comment. When you want to write your comment, you start with the hash sign. So this, I can write this is they call it pounds. Yeah, so you can start with that. So this is a vector. So for this, I can write checking the class of the variable. So I can put here, creating a matrix. So you write your comment. So why do you need to write your comment? So that anyone that looks at your code should be able to understand what you're doing. So you write comment. So whenever after you put this pound sign or whatever you call it, hash sign, arrow won't run that particular, anything you write, that particular line. Arrow will know that you are writing a comment. So arrow won't see it as a code. You have to write your comments so that everyone that looks at your code should be able to understand it. So I'm done with vector. I'm done with matrix. The next thing I'll do is I'll discuss now is data frame. What's the difference between data frame and matrix? In data frame is almost similar like matrix, but the difference is that in data frame you can have both numbers and you can have categories. Matrix doesn't allow that, but data frame allows that. So let me write my comments. I want to teach on data frame. So let me call the name of, okay, let me not assign a variable name to it first. So when you want to do data frame, the first thing you do is you use data.frame. That's the function. So these are functions, they are inbuilt function. Are you seeing the word base? Base tells us they are inbuilt function. There are some things you want to do, but arrow doesn't have it as inbuilt function. That's when you need a libraries. Like data.table is another data structure. Arrow doesn't have it as an inbuilt function. So I had to install data.table. So how do you install packages? If you want to install packages, just come to this, click install, then write the name of the package you want to install. So as you are typing it, it pops up. So that's why Arrow Studio is very good. So I write it pops up. So this is data.table. It is not an inbuilt function, so you install it. So these are, if you check, I have a lot of functions there because I've been using my Arrow Studio. So you have to install. Some people used to ask me, how will I know what to install? You don't have to bother yourself. When you want to do any particular analysis, you just have to know all the packages needed for that particular analysis. So for data frame, I said we can combine both numbers and letters. So let me create one so I can have name. So let me use the names of people who have here. We have someone said daughter. We have Santos. Okay. We have Felix. So we have Felix. Then look at then the net. So this is how I see. Let me use the help function. Data.frame. So it will guide you on how to write it. So this is how to write it. So it started with 3 dots, and it will tell you what you need to do. So when you read it, you understand it. But if you don't understand all this, you check the example. So look at the example. So that's how I write my code. So if I don't understand all the grammar, I will just look at the example and I should be able to understand it. So let me explain what I'm doing now. So I'm creating a column, and the name of the column is name. And these are the objects that will be in the column. The next column I want to create is gender. No, the name of the column should be in quotes. All right. Correct. And take note, whenever you are writing categories in arrow, all your categories must be in quotes, all. Whenever you are writing letters, so that's what I mean. Whenever you're writing letters, it must be in quotes. So the next one is gender, so gender must also be in quotes. So gender, so we have female, male. Now, you see, if I want to move to the second line, I can just click my enter. Let me go to, I'll click back. The next one is male. Okay, let me create the third column, age. Age is a categorical variable. So because it's a categorical variable, I'll put it in quotes. So I can put 21, 20, 25, 21. Now you see this. These are numbers, so they are not in quote. I want to run, correct. Are you seeing it? Arrow didn't put my numbers in quotes. Look at, go back to matrix. When I combined letter and numbers, they were in quotes. So arrow is not seeing this number as number, arrow is seeing it as a category. But for data frame, you can combine number and categories, that is letters. So that's how it is. So it depends on the data you're working on. Is it a vector? Is it a matrix? Is it a data frame? So this is how to create a data frame. Now, all these things I did in line 33 and 34, I didn't store it in any name. So I can decide to store it in a name and call it SS2. So whenever I run SS2, I will see my result. Then one thing you should know about data frame, because that will take us to the next one we are going to learn, which is list. One thing you should know about data frame, they must all be of the same length. They all have 3 columns, 3 rows, sorry, 3 rows. They must all be of the same length. So let me show you. If I try to remove one of these to make the first column to be 2, it will give me an error message. So this is an error message telling me they differ in length. So what if you have your data, they are not of the same length? Like if you are working with incomplete block design, you want to do an analysis and it has to do with incomplete block design, they are not of the same length. So what will you do? How do you manage it? They are not of the same length. If you try to use data frame will give you an error message. So what do? You use what we call list. Okay, before we go back to that, let's check the class of SS2. So class of SS2, I see it is data frame. So the next one we are going to do is to create a list. Remember, a list can take objects of different sizes and type. So list acts like data frame. It can take both numbers and categories. But the unique thing about list is that list can take objects of different sizes. So let me copy this. The same thing that gave me an error message, and change data frame to list. Are you seeing it? For data frame, it didn't work. But for list, it worked. Why did it work? Because list can accept objects of this different length. So for name, we have dots and dots, and we have male, female, male, male. For age, we have 20, 25, 21. 20, 25, 21, they are not in quotes, meaning are we seeing it as numbers? So let me go back to this. Felix. Okay, so I see it work. So I've explained 4 different data structures that I will be using. I explained vector, I explained matrix, I explained data frame, and I've explained list. That doesn't mean we have only 4, but I think we can work with this for now. Then as we continue the training, I will explain more, like I will explain the data.table I mentioned here. This data.table, we'll also use it. Like when you want to plot graph using ggplot is a function, you have to make use of data.table. Okay, so for the first class, we're going to stop here. Then we'll continue from here in our next class. So today I was able to show you the overview of Arrow, that we have 4 environments: the first environment, second environment, third environment, and fourth environment. Anything you do in both the first and second environment will show up in your history. It will show up in your history. It gives you can drag this down, tells you all you've done. If you go to environment, it will tell you all the variable name I've stored. So I have variable name SS2. It will tell you that you were able to assign SS2, and SS2 has 3 observations, that is 3 columns, and each of them 3 columns, which is 3 variables, and they all have a size of 3. It will tell you math, that you have a function that you saved as math. It will tell you have a variable name that you saved as fan. You have a variable name you saved as math. You have a variable name you saved as X. So environmental gives you all this. History tells you everything you've been doing. Then we have the fourth environment where you have your plots, packages, and don't forget to use your app. It's not bad for you to use your app. Don't think only beginners use app. Experts, they also use app. The one thing about Arrow is for you to know the basics. And once you know the basics, you just need few clues to know how to write. Okay, I think that's all for today. Thank you all for joining. We'll continue tomorrow. If I still have time today, I will record another video and send, but I'm going to pause for now. Okay. Thank you. Do you have any question?